The Maine Business Show is proudly presented by Poland Spring.
At Poland Spring, we've called Maine home since 1845 and are proud to be part of the community. Over the past 2 decades, investing more than $12 million in the place that we call home. Poland Spring, 100% natural spring water.
This week on the Maine Business Show, we'll hear more about Hancock Lumber. Plus, how is one Maine resort faring now that travel is back, but some in the hospitality industry aren't? We'll talk to a fashion designer who has sweetened the landscape in Biddeford. And we'll find out what is uniquely Maine at the Ogunquit Museum of American Art. All that and more on the Maine Business Show, coming right up. Welcome to another edition of the Maine Business Show. I'm your host, Quincy Hentzel. This week, we're on location once again in Saco, Maine with our friends from Hancock Lumber. Hancock Lumber has been operating in Maine across 3 centuries, which is kind of hard to believe. We're joined today by Lori Festukas, kitchen designer, and John Muzzy, retail HR manager. Lori and John, thanks for joining us today.
Our pleasure, thank you.
So John, Hancock Lumber for the last 9 years has been listed as one of the best places to work in Maine. Can you talk a little bit about why that's the case?
It's pretty simple, honestly. It's really the people. We are a very people-focused company. We're going to make sure we hire for quality. We embrace people having a life outside of work, having work-life balance. I mean, it really comes down to we put the people first, and by doing so, it's really just a group of over 700 employees that really take the quality of the experience at work very seriously. So it always comes back to the people.
Have you been facing any of the challenges many Maine businesses have been facing around finding skilled and talented workers?
Not really, and it's because I would attribute it to, again, the quality of our team, in that when people come here, it's what we've advertised it as, and they're so embraced by their teammates. So thankfully, not so much.
Lori, how is the current real estate climate affecting home improvements?
So I think especially in this area, we're seeing a lot of contractors building developments, which is great because it's a wonderful place to live. We're right by the ocean, and even if it's not new construction, we see a lot of walk-ins, like families looking to renovate what they already have, but at least keeping up with the trend.
Well, speaking of that, as a designer, can you talk a little bit towards the trends that you're seeing in home improvements?
We've done a couple webinars and worked with a lot of our cabinet manufacturers to stay with current trends as well as advance our knowledge into what we might see in the future. And it's looking like we're moving away from the classic white shaker, moving more towards warm wood tones, stains, and then pops of green and blue, which is really exciting to see.
Well, Lori, John, thank you both for being on the show. Thank you for hosting us. I know that there's windows and power tools behind me, but we are looking into a beautiful design showroom. So I know I have been inspired all morning here, and I hope that you will join us again on the Maine Business Show.
Thank you for having us.
Maine is, of course, vacation land, and all those vacationers need a place to stay. For those who aren't camping or who aren't headed inland, they may want a few days of pampering along the Maine coast. And so they find their way to Kennebunkport and a little slice of Maine called the Nonantum Resort. With us now is one of the owners of the Nonantum, Jean Marvin, who also is the innkeeper. Jean, thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
So the Nonantum has been around for quite some time. I think you've made it through 2 world wars, a stock market crash, 2 pandemics. So you definitely have some longevity. Tell me how it's been for you and the Nonantum over the last couple of years.
Yes, the Nonantum opened July 4th of 1884. Longevity is a really important thing in the hospitality industry. And as you said, we've gone through many, many challenges, but maybe none as challenging as the pandemic. However, we came out of it stronger than we ever were due to pulling together and working hard.
So many people right now in the hospitality industry are struggling to find service workers. Are you facing the same types of challenges at the Nonantum?
Fortunately, we're not. We bring in people from a lot of different places. We bring in people from the recovery community. We bring in people who have been involved with our justice system. That means that we have to be a little more connected to our people. It means there's a lot of things that we do that maybe other businesses haven't thought of yet. We go and pick people up. We meet people where they are. We love them where they are. And until you really love your staff, you will never have the commitment that you need to be a truly cohesive family unit. And fortunately at the Nonantum, we've been able to do that. My daughter is our director of HR, and this was all her idea. And so we go to jails and interview people. We go to halfway houses and interview people. There are many people that really need a second chance. And the thing that I didn't anticipate when we started this program is how it would impact our other employees. It's been just an amazing journey watching existing employees blossom and grow as they set the example for our new friends.
Being a seasonal employer, have you found it difficult to actually recruit and retain talent?
We work so hard during the season that we actually need a breather in the winter. And the other thing that has really been a help to us is many of our workers go to school at the Maine Community College system. From January to May, they can do a semester of work. And some of our people are majoring in hospitality and some aren't, but whatever degree they're looking for, we want to support them to be all that they can be. And sometimes it's hard to say goodbye when that electrician is finally finished with his program, but we're so proud to be able to have sent them in the community. We call them our graduates. When we have big events like our Fire and Ice in December, they'll come back and work for the weekend because they know that we're super busy.
So when people go to a resort, especially a well-run resort, what is going on behind the scenes at the Nonantum to provide that to your guests?
Well, as you can imagine, it's crazy town behind the scenes. We're kind of like that proverbial duck that's paddling crazily under the water and on top just as calm and serene as can be.
Jean, thank you for joining us today, and thank you for being such a shining example of a wonderful and thoughtful employer in the state of Maine. So I look forward to coming down and visiting you at the Nonantum, and I hope you come back to see us on the show.
Well, Quincy, thank you so much for having me. I'd love to come back.
When we come back, there's something sweet coming off the sewing machines in Biddeford. Angelrox is a family business that landed in Biddeford in 2012. The driving force behind Angelrox is Roxy Sugar, a fashion designer whose distinctive sugar line of plant-based women's wear is causing a stir.
Angelrox evolved because I knew that I was going to start my own fashion brand. I launched Angelrox in 1999 under the tagline, May Peace Prevail, and it's sort of the core of the brand as a fashion designer is seeking to find that inner core of peace and joy and love and comfort, and then share that. Over time, I've committed to focusing on stretch plant-based knits. One of our favorites is our bamboo. We also do some with beechwood and like a light tissue weight modal. The comfort on the skin is unparalleled. The adaptability, the drape, the flow. It appeals to me as a designer and a dancer and a just lover of movement more than a classic short staple, such as, just cotton alone will give us. Very early on, I adopted my positive sizing. I have had just such touching moments from angels who felt that changed their very perspective about themselves and their bodies. And it's a business definitely built on love and comfort and support. And I am so incredibly blessed. We didn't even get to the incredible talent of our team, how they take such immaculate care of everyone who walks in the door and making sugar just this happy, cozy treat for people. We now have our 2 sugar stores, our little flagship here in Biddeford, and then our Commercial Street, Old Port Sugar, and then also we're online, of course, and available through other stores around the country.
Maine has a long history of attracting visual artists, from 19th century greats such as Winslow Homer to modern representational painters like Neil Welliver. Maine also has a treasure trove of great museums, including the Ogunquit Museum of American Art. And we're excited to have with us today Amanda Lahikainen, the museum's executive director. Amanda, thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely, thank you for having me.
So the Ogunquit Museum of American Art is a gem of a spot and really has a uniquely Maine story. Tell us a little bit about its history.
Absolutely. Well, to start with, we are right on the water. We're right on Narrow Cove, and we have that unique connection to the ocean, which is what initially drew artists to Ogunquit to begin with. The story kind of starts with Charles Woodbury and Hamilton Easter Field. Charles Woodbury comes in 1898, and I'm going to fast forward to the 1950s with the vision of Henry Strader, who's the museum's founder. He had this vision, incorporated the museum in 1951. The cornerstone was set and the building was built in 1952, and then by 1953 they had opened their doors for what was then a seasonal museum. We're still a seasonal museum, but it was open for 2 months a year, and they had a fabulous opening in 1953, and for 70 years, this is our 70th anniversary, the museum has been producing exhibitions, maintaining a permanent collection, which has grown to almost 3,000 works of art at the moment. But I appreciate you use the word gem. Some people say it's a hidden gem, and that word hidden is one of the reasons I'm really glad to be here, because I want to be able to share that museum with everyone in the state of Maine and beyond. In fact, we are of regional importance.
Well, you're quite a destination for visitors, especially in the summer. How does that ripple effect and impact other businesses in Ogunquit?
One of the things that I really love about my job in particular is that I'm an employer. Museums are actually, they're part of the economy, they're an engine in the economy. I actually have a statistic from 2022. Museums employ 726,000 people in the nation, which I think is quite significant. So in terms of Ogunquit, absolutely, we know people come specifically to see us. We also know that people come specifically just to be in Ogunquit and then kind of land with us. We're a draw for tourists, and the local businesses know that, and they're actually very, very supportive. And they're one of the reasons that we're able to thrive and continue to bring really excellent exhibitions to the museum is because of the support of those local businesses.
You mentioned the Ogunquit Museum's collection earlier. Who might we find in that collection?
So I've got to say, totally unfair question, because there are so many amazing artists who deserve to be highlighted. But let me give you just a couple of names from the early part of the 20th century: Marguerite Zorak and Walt Kuhn. From mid-century, Mark Tobey and Huey Lee Smith, who's this fabulous African-American artist who's actually on view at the moment. And then some contemporary artists, Lois Dodd, who was recently at the museum, and even Eric Aho, who is a fellow Finn of Finnish descent. And a lot of those, the artists that I've mentioned, are on view right now at the museum with an exhibit called Networks of Modernism. It's mostly our permanent collection, and it's going to be up for several years. And what that exhibit is trying to do, much like that kind of list of artists that I just went through, is make these connections between artists, between places, right? Ogunquit is very, very connected to New York and Paris. For instance, several of the artists who were involved with the early art colonies were involved in the 1913 Armory Show in New York, which is the moment when European modernism comes to the United States. I mean, it was like, absolutely definitive. And Ogunquit art played a huge role in that. Same with Hamilton Easter Field. He actually commissioned works of art from the famous Pablo Picasso for his house in Brooklyn. What are these connections? How do we make them? And that's what that exhibition is trying to do. And in my view, it does very, very well, connecting narratives and artists and places. So some of those connections might also be of interest to visitors as well as the works of art themselves.
Amanda, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing a little bit about this wonderful gem down in Ogunquit. I cannot wait to come down there and visit you.
Thank you, absolutely. Well, you are invited.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, welcome to Harvard Pilgrim headquarters here in Portland, Maine. I am the Director of Sales. My responsibilities include our membership here in Maine and all of our market segments, individual market, small group, large employer groups as well. I work with a sales team of 10 or so highly motivated professional employees. They're really driven to provide care for our members, which is the main goal.
I'm the Director of Strategy and Finance for Harvard Pilgrim in Maine. I coordinate a team of experts from our company that handles everything we do in Maine. So it's a team with Bill, myself, our medical director, our director of provider contracting, actuarial underwriting, product marketing, government relations. It takes a lot of people, it takes a lot of experts.
We have a very close-knit group. Insurance is a complex world and it's a challenging world, but at the end of the day, having a cohesive team is very important to our success.
We provide access to a statewide network of healthcare providers at discounted rates that are exclusively available to our membership. We pride ourselves on the quality of our relationships with our industry partners, including brokers, health systems, regulators, and most importantly, employer groups residing in Maine that purchase health insurance for their employees.
Harvard Pilgrim is committed to the communities in which we serve, and one of the most recent ways we have done that is through the Harvard Pilgrim Pedals program. In partnership with the City of Portland and Tandem Bike, we created this bike program with different stations throughout Portland. I believe there are 9 or 10 of them now. And individuals can rent a period of time for these bikes and find ways to stay active and healthy while enjoying the City of Portland.
I enjoy solving. It's a very complicated and challenging industry, and so being able to work in this space and constantly pursue solutions.
I enjoy working with this company because of its culture, its people, and what's most important to me is the end user experience, the human experience. I'm in this business because I enjoy solving issues and problems for individuals and businesses here in Maine. Coming up, we are excited to introduce you to the Maine Association of Nonprofits.
In 21st century Maine, we can easily list the products for which Maine is known nationally: lobster, potatoes, blueberries, and wood products. In recent years, we've added items like locally cultivated oysters and kelp. But soon after the Civil War, one of Maine's most lucrative exports was corn, specifically canned corn. Corn from fields across Maine was canned in local canneries, shipped from Maine ports, and enjoyed on dinner tables around the country. This week's History of Maine Business Focus, prepared with help from the Maine Historical Society and the Maine Memory Network, takes a look at the prosperity around Maine corn. Among the first canning operations in the country was something invented by the Winslow brothers in Portland, Maine in 1858. Winslow's patent hermetically sealed corn was their first product, and it was a huge success. One Winslow employee, George Jewett, learned the canning industry and then became superintendent of the local Burnham and Morrill corn cannery in Norridgewock. In 1910, Jewett went out on his own, building and buying canning factories. His largest one was in Norridgewock. Between 80 and 100 people per season worked at George S. Jewett's Norridgewock factory, with most wages being at the minimum allowed by law. One of Portland's more famous residents, James P. Baxter, also got in on the corn craze, building the Lovell Corn Shop, which was supplied by local Lovell farmers. Local residents flocked to the Lovell Corn Shop during early harvest, where they worked husking corn for 5 cents a basket. In 1900, Maine ranked 3rd in the nation in the volume of its canned sweet corn. Much of the Baxter family fortune was made with James P. Baxter's canning enterprises, a fortune that allowed his son, Percival Baxter, to purchase and donate the land we know today as Baxter State Park. Each week, we're joined by a recognized business leader in Maine, and this week we're talking with investor and property manager Alex Fabish of Centurion Property Management. Alex, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So you and your brother, Ben, have really made a name for yourselves by investing in and refurbishing multifamily units in the Biddeford-Saco area.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. It was about 10 years ago we bought our first smaller 3-unit building. It was empty at the time, renovated it, moved some nice people in, and it kind of just took off from there.
And what gave you the vision 10 years ago that this area in Biddeford-Saco would just blossom the way that it has?
I thought it had kind of some key aspects to it that did make it stand out, in that, you know, it was kind of underappreciated at the time. It's on the beach, there's a college here, it's on a, you know, kind of a major transportation corridor into the rest of Maine. And that combined with just having what I thought then and still think now, just like a cool little urban core, really just drew me to it.
Housing has just been such a struggle all across Maine. What types of units are you building? Are these affordable housing? Are they market rate? Are they workforce housing?
It's primarily market rate along with some subsidized and income restricted units. It's a mix, and it really depends on the building and kind of the project.
So I know you also have invested in some local hotels and motels. What has made you decide to put some of your investment dollars there?
I figured the hospitality stuff was a good way that we could kind of leverage our existing skills while digging into something fun and different. We actually started right down the street here in Saco with the Wagon Wheel Motel, just did like kind of a cool, funky renovation there, and have expanded, down to Ogunquit, Old Orchard Beach, Wells, and yeah, gone kind of crazy with it, and I'm loving it so far.
Well, I want to thank you, Alex, for joining us today. I also want to thank you for building housing in the state of Maine, because we need it and we need more of it. So keep up the great work, and I hope you'll join us again on the Maine Business Show.
Okay, thank you very much.
Water connects us all. As a company that relies on nature, we take responsibility to help conserve it. Our team of experts sustainably source water from carefully selected springs, monitored and managed to help support Maine's future, continuing the legacy of one of Maine's oldest brands for this generation and those to come. Poland Spring, 100% natural spring water.
We are excited to introduce you to the Maine Association of Nonprofits. Nonprofits are a vital piece of the Maine economy, and we are excited to hear more from Jennifer and her team.
I'm Jennifer Hutchins. I'm the Executive Director of the Maine Association of Nonprofits, and I'm thrilled that Harvard Pilgrim selected us to be the featured nonprofit on this week's Maine Business Show. Our job is to enrich the personal and community life of people in Maine by strengthening the leadership, the voice, and the organizational effectiveness of all of Maine's nonprofits. We do that through a variety of ways. Our main job is to be the go-to resource for all kinds of questions related to how to run a nonprofit legally, ethically, effectively, compassionately, all of those ways that nonprofits contribute to our communities. We want to support them in that effort. So we have professional programs, in-person programs, online trainings. We do multi-week leadership programs, and we have lots of resources, many of which are free, and we provide cost savings benefits to people who opt to become a member of the association. A lot of people don't realize that Maine's charitable nonprofits employ over 100,000 people in Maine, and that represents 1 in 6 Maine workers in our workforce. Whether it is a hospital or a public health agency or a scientific research organization or a youth development organization or so many of the arts and cultural organizations, it's clear that nonprofits are at the very core of our Maine communities. We wouldn't be who we are today without our nonprofits. And by us supporting them to do their job better, we're hoping that all of Maine benefits from greater prosperity. What we really find unique about our partnership with Harvard Pilgrim is actually what I really enjoy about working in Maine, which is they're our neighbors and they've become our friends. And there's no pretense to the relationship that we've built with Harvard Pilgrim. We understand that they have a job to do, we have a job to do, and it's only by together, which is essentially what the nonprofit community is about. It's about the common good. And Harvard Pilgrim and the Maine Association of Nonprofits, we don't see each other as independent entities. We see each other as people, neighbors coming together to figure out how we can bring our solutions to make Maine a better place. And we're just delighted that Harvard Pilgrim are real people just like us trying to make a difference. If you're interested in working with charitable nonprofits and making a difference in your community, I encourage you to go to an area on our website for the Board Explorer program, where you can get connected to nonprofits who are looking for people to serve on their boards of directors.
That's it for this week's edition of the Maine Business Show. Our thanks once again to Hancock Lumber for hosting us and to all of our guests. We hope you enjoyed meeting some people who are doing great things in the world of Maine business. I'm Quincy Hentzel. See you next time.